What's up YouTube, Tactical Swede here with another how-to. If you remember in the last how-to, we installed the Zev Technologies Fulcrum Trigger here on the Glock 19. This is an adjustable trigger, but if you remember in that video I said I was probably going to leave it as it was. But then I got bored, really. I decided I was going to mess around with it, adjust it down a little bit, take out some of the pre-travel. I've already done that here, but I'm going to go through the steps and show you how to do it, just in case somebody wants to know. The one thing to remember with this, and I didn't adjust it all the way down 100%. Let me safe this up first. This is my everyday carry gun. So. Alright. The one thing to remember when you adjust this down, if you take a look right in here, where the safety is there on the trigger, you should have daylight there as you look through. So if you adjust it down too far and you don't have daylight, that can cause problems, because what's going to happen is, if you don't have daylight, let's see if I can kind of simulate this. Right there you don't have any daylight. Well, now when you pull the trigger, that safety is not going to want to release because it's already pushing up against the frame. So you want to have some daylight in there so that gives that trigger safety some room to move. So as you can see, I've adjusted this down to where there's just a little bit of take up before you hit the wall. Right there. That's it. And then a nice break. There was a little bit more pre-travel in that, but that's where I'm comfortable with it. I don't want it to be right on the edge there, because then any pressure on that trigger, you got a chance of firing. So I wanted to have a little bit of take up in there, and that right there I'm comfortable with. Alright, so first things first, to get into this, what are we going to need? Well, our gun. We're going to need a punch to take the pins out of the frame. You're going to need your adjustment wrenches here, that little tiny Allen wrenches that come with the kit, and you're going to want some Loctite. So break the gun down, set your slide aside, and we'll start taking the trigger out. Pop your lock and block pin out. Let's see if we can't get this trigger pin to come out without any difficulties. This one's really tight on my gun for some reason. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to take this out of frame for a second. She goes. Pull out the slide release lever, pull out the locking block, trigger housing pin on the back here, and we pull the trigger out. Now, the thing to remember when you're adjusting this trigger is it can only be done with the trigger out of the gun. So you got to make your adjustments small, so you're not going too far with it. It is kind of a pain to adjust it, put it back in the gun, test it out, pull it back out, adjust it, but it's better that than going too far with it, because if you do go too far with it, you can have a problem where you can't pull your trigger, and then disassembling your gun when you can't pull the trigger obviously is a problem, because you need to pull the trigger in order to release the slide. There are ways around that, but you start getting into some difficulties there, so better to adjust it in small increments. So as it says on here, Loctited from the factory, so heat the trigger with the lighter before adjusting. So all I did when I did mine, just took a lighter, hit it with it for a few seconds, take one of your Allen wrenches here. And these are very small, so you gotta watch that you don't bend these or strip them out. So this is your pre-travel adjustment right here on the front face of the trigger. And what I did is I went in with it. I think I went in about a half a turn. Put it back in the gun, test it out, work good. That's where I want to keep it. So, what you do at that point, once you get it to where you want and you want to set it, what you're going to do, put your wrench in there. Okay, now we're indexed here at about the 3 o'clock position as you're looking at it. So what you want to do is back it out 2 to 3 full turns, and then you're going to hit your threads with the Loctite, and then you're going to tighten it back up the same amount of turns you loosened it up. And that's going to get back to the point where you were at. You just have to remember what position your wrench was indexed at. So like I said, you're at 3 o'clock here, so we backed out 3 turns, stopping at 3 o'clock, Loctited it, and then we tightened it back down 3 turns, stopping at 3 o'clock, and that's where it was set. And then you want to let that sit for I would at least let it sit overnight before you start shooting with it, because vibrations can break that loose if it's not fully fully cured. Now your over travel adjustment is on the back side right there. I did not need to mess with the over travel on mine. Basically what the over travel is once the trigger breaks, how much further the trigger will move. Mine's honestly set perfectly. I don't have any issues with it, so I left it as is. But if you did want to adjust it, as I said, right there is your screw for that. Same procedures. You would adjust it to where you want to, get it set right. Mark the index with your wrench, back it out, Loctite it, put it back, let it set, and then put your trigger back in. So pretty simple process as far as adjusting it. The only negative, as I said, is you gotta have it out of the gun to adjust it. So it can be tedious if you're going back and forth with it. Luckily I hit mine first shot and it was right where I wanted it to be, so didn't have any issues there. So we're going to throw this back together now. Slide back on. And of course, anytime you're messing with the trigger, anytime you disassemble your gun, you should always give it a good function check. So, pull to the rear, she should fire. Reset. And should be able to fire again. So, good function check there. As I said, if you're adjusting the trigger, you want to make sure especially that reset is working, because if you adjust things too far, you can stop the internals from working the way they're supposed to, and you can fire it, but then it won't reset. If that happens, you've adjusted it too far. Take it back apart, mess with your adjustments again. But as I said, the biggest key is to make sure that you've got some daylight in between the frame and that trigger safety. As long as you can see daylight there, you should be good to go on your pre-travel. Anything where it's touching, you're going to start running into issues. Possibly not even be able to pull the trigger. So there you go. Simple as that. Pretty easy adjustment. We'll check it out and see how I like it once we get it out on the range. Just playing around with it, doing some dry practice. I really love the way it feels. It's definitely a lot lighter, definitely more comfortable. But yeah, looking great. Can't wait to get out and test it. Alright guys, that's all I got today. Just wanted to do this quick little adjustment how-to video. Please, if you like what I'm doing, give me that thumbs up. Please, by all means, subscribe. We got a lot more videos coming out. That's all for today. Till next time, live life and have fun out there.